Welcome to In the Know. Today we have a special guest helping us talk about the Chicago Bulls. It's Jason Patt of Clutch Points and Cash Considerations, an excellent Bulls podcast if you haven't listened to it. So today we're going to break down everything Bulls, so stay tuned for this show. Jason, I have to first of all welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I have to ask you, is there a cooler intro video than our intro video that you just happened to see?
I mean, I was bopping a little bit there, so that was pretty good. I was not expecting that. That was really cool.
See, Mason, I'm not crazy here. I'm not crazy. How you been, Jason? What's up with you? I know, not all is fantastic in Bulls land, but how have you been?
It's doing all right. The Bulls are all right, and I will, we'll obviously talk plenty Bulls Pelicans. That outcome was not so good for me and my Bulls last week. We got another game coming up in a couple days here. There's a lot of just weirdness. I mean, and a big part, as you know, as you guys with the Pelicans know, the Lonzo Ball injury front is going to be still out for another few months. Bulls are just basically trying to tread water until he comes back. The schedule's been pretty tough. A lot of back to backs. Zach LaVine's still working back from his knee stuff. So it's been okay. They're 6-8, which is obviously not great. They can't win any close games, as we saw against the Pelicans in that game. But like they've been mostly competitive outside of a couple games, including last night's disaster against the Nuggets. But so it's like it's okay, I guess you could say, in Bulls land.
It's funny because we were talking before this, and it feels like some team had to win that game because the Pelicans have had similar problems. They've lost 3 games in overtime already this year. So 2 teams that have struggled in the clutch, maybe for different reasons, maybe for similar reasons. But we'll see if it comes down to that. But let's talk and just get the Lonzo stuff, I think, out of the way. I think it would be good to hear from you about. We heard some not great news at the start of the year. Seems like maybe there's a little bit better, expectations for when he might come back this year. I mean, what's the latest on what you've heard about Lonzo and the injury situation?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really heard much since the start of the year when he kind of had this surgery, and the Bulls, I guess, never really actually put out like oh yeah, he had this surgery and he's great. I think Billy mentioned something at one point just about how they think they found out like what the deal was with this knee because I mean, just going back, and he's been out since January, so we're almost at a full year since he's been out, and he underwent the initial meniscus thing, and then that was supposed to be a month or 2 months. Never came back last year. He had this bone bruise, which kept bothering him, kept bothering over the summer, and they finally decided after all this time they needed to go into the knife again. They claim that the claim is that the issue has been addressed with this latest surgery, and that he'll be back at some point. Well, when that is, who actually knows? I've been banking on sometime in 2023 at some point. Hopefully that's January, February, somewhere around there would be great. It's just the way this whole thing has gone this entire time. You can't honestly like say it at this point. Just like if he comes back this year at all, that'll be great. Then obviously he still has to work his way back into form. It's just a really been unfortunate situation. I know, again, as Pelicans fans know, injuries have been a thing with him going back to the Lakers days as well. That this is multiple surgeries he's had now with knee stuff. And it is really just a shame because, I mean, the Bulls were awesome when they had him last year. He was a great player, kind of as their glue guy, connects everything together on both ends of the court. So again, the Bulls are just trying to tread water. Hopefully he comes back the next couple months. And then you hope that it's almost like the inverse of last year where they started great with him, but then he got hurt and everything kind of went to crap in the back half of the year, even though they still made the playoffs. This year, tread water with him, and then hopefully he comes back and they get stronger and end the season on a higher note and go into the playoffs if they even make it again. And that the season ends on a better note. But basically just crossing our fingers at this point because it has just been really rough, this whole Lonzo Ball situation.
The Pelicans, obviously, as you mentioned, have been in a similar situation, even with a meniscus injury with Zion. And what was advertised as a fairly quickly return soon became a period of months thing. And it was, well, when's he coming back? What's his ramp up activity? There's a lot of questions surrounding his initial meniscus injury his rookie year. And I think we're seeing that it's not just these 2 players who've taken a while. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. also took a while coming back from his meniscus injury. And I think in the past, a lot of players were able to come back quickly. And I think so.
Yeah.
expectations have been different, but it sure seems like all of these are unique to the player and don't necessarily always the initial procedure may not always correct what needs to be corrected. And do you anticipate if and when he does come back? I think they move into the starting lineup, of course, but the Bulls found a lot of success playing with a turbo lineup when they inserted Alex Caruso in that unit with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. Do you think out the gate or whenever they found their footing, they use that as their starting lineup, or is there still going to be a continued investment in Pat Williams as sort of the four who can defend multiple positions and give you a little bit on offense?
Yeah, I would guess that they're going to stick with Patrick Williams and they'd probably move Io DeSumo to the bench. I guess I don't if they might bring back Lonzo really slow and maybe they bring Lonzo back off the bench initially just because it's been such a unique situation, as you kind of mentioned, just with the knee and with the bone bruise. And I think they claimed there was like nerve stuff going on there too. So like maybe they bring Lonzo off the bench. I think ultimately they do probably want to go with Lonzo, DeMar, Zach, Pat, and Nikola Vucevic as their starting lineup, assuming Pat does keep taking some step forwards. His first like week or two this year was absolutely awful. He was doing nothing. The last couple weeks, he has shown more progress, starting to play with a bit more force on both ends. He's starting to score in double digits more regularly, making more of an impact on the glass with defense, with making plays there. So he's been a bit better. So I think if he keeps on that track, they'll definitely want him to stay. But this was also just like Pat is one of the only like Bulls guys who's like 6'7", 6'8" wing. They like don't have many wings at all. So he's like their one big forward they can use on other like big star forwards across the league. Like I know Caruso is great defensively, Lonzo is too, but like you don't want, especially Lonzo coming back from injury, like you don't want him taking a pounding guarding like star players all the time and having to deal with that. Like he did that sometimes last year, and he was really good at it. But so I would guess like ultimately they will probably hopefully when Lonzo is back to normal, Lonzo, Zach, DeMar, Pat, Vooch. And Pat is such a swing factor on this Bulls team. And it's been nice to see him show some signs because like I said, those first couple of weeks, he was doing absolutely nothing. And it was not pretty.
Well, so that I wanted to ask you because of those first few weeks. It's very early at the moment, but gun to your head, he's extension eligible this summer. Is that something you see getting done? And I think the range is probably quite wide as to what that number could look like. So I'm not gonna put you on the spot on that. But is that someone given where they are on their timeline, given the stars that they have, given the assets they have available, is that an extension they want done, or do you think it's more useful to try to build up his trade value and perhaps use him and maybe get off of Vucevic's contract, add any of the picks that might free up later. I forget what your pick situation is like post the Orlando trade, but I know it's not fantastic, but
no,
I think you got some.
Curious Laurie Marketing might be available.
Yeah, that's right. Bring him back. Pick situation. Well, they traded 2 in the Vooch trade. They traded 1 in the DeMar DeRozan trade, sign and trade. They did get 1 back in the Lauri Markkanen to Cleveland. They got the Portland pick, which is now looking probably going. I guess if Portland keeps this up, it's just lottery protected. So Portland right now is, I think, tied on top of the West. If they keep it up, the Bulls will have that pick this year. But they are out 3. One of them, I think they get. I can't remember exactly what it is either. But they traded 2 for Vooch, 1 for DeMar. So like it's not the greatest pick situation in terms of Patrick Williams and like his future. Like I mean, he was the number 4 pick a couple years ago. He was the first draft pick of this new front office. They are clearly invested in him. Based on all the rumors that were out there, like trade-wise, it seems like they did not really want to include him unless it was like, I mean, there was like the Jeremy Grant stuff. It seemed like that was never really a thing. Jeremy Grant's having a great year for the Blazers this year. Rudy Gobert, it seemed like they were hesitant to include that. You can say, I mean, the Bulls never were going to match that what the Timberwolves traded. And right now the Timberwolves are not in a great spot to start the season after giving up all that. But it seemed like I was not sure if Patrick Williams was ever really on the table in those Gobert trade talks. It seemed like it was hit or miss. Like, I feel like the front office is really invested in him. Would I actually see them signing him to an extension this season? Again, I guess if he keeps on the track he's going and starts showing this improvement, I could see them trying to get something done. This last year, we did not see a deal with Kobe White get done, which did not surprise me. His name has been coming up in trade rumors for a while now. It's coming up again. But with Pat, I think they probably see a bit more of a future there just because of the potential he has as a 6'7", 6'8", two-way player. Kobe White's not a two-way player at all. Pat at least has that potential. He just has to start showing a lot more. he is showing some more. Just got to be consistent. He's got to do it when it really matters. So like if you put me on the spot right now and said, do I think Patrick Williams is going to sign an extension this summer? I would probably lean no, but to hedge a lot, I think there is a lot of room for that answer to change across the rest of the season because he just has so much room to grow. And some of this also could depend on what happens with the team. Like if the Bulls go belly up here as they wait for Lonzo to come back, I mean, they might just go in a totally different direction here. I mean, Vooch is expiring. You mentioned him. I mean, do they start selling pieces? Like, I don't know if they would use Pat to try to get a better piece in. So there's just a lot of ways I think this can go right now.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at that schedule, I mean, I don't expect the Bulls to go belly up, but you guys got a tough slate, a huge road trip coming up. So it's New Orleans, you got a couple more home games. Something with the Pelicans, you guys, both the games this year against Pelicans, you had like 3 days or 2 days off, but on one end of it. So I think one of the questions I was going to ask is around, do you expect anything different with the rotations, game 1 to game 2? I'm still curious, so I'd like to get your perspective on, if what you'd like to see done differently with the Bulls from game 1 to game 2 here. But it does seem like, at least from a injury management perspective, that's not really a consideration for the Bulls against the Pels because they've got a couple of days off here.
Yeah, I would assume it'll be mostly the same. They have. I feel like Billy has started to try to play Goran Dragic more. I guess I am curious. The Bulls have been getting off to really slow starts. They got off to a slow start last game against the Nuggets, and they got blown out in general. But like their starting lineup has not been good. I was looking at like the lineup data after last night's game. Like the offense has been really bad. Again, I don't think they're going to bench Patrick Williams, and like Io's been pretty good, but like. I'm curious, like if at any point Billy, if they keep starting slow, if they bench Io and like try Goran Dragic, which Dragic has been awesome off the bench, but then like that would change up the bench thing. It's like their bench unit has been awesome with like Dragic, with Drummond back now. Was Drummond back for that Pelicans game? I can't even remember. I'm like totally blanking on that when he came back.
He was
he came back? That might have been the game he came back. But with Drummond, Dragic, like Derrick Jones Jr., Javonte Green, they've been playing Zach and Caruso off the bench. They've been playing Zach with some of these lineups. Like they have been great. So I'm curious if Billy would change that up to move, because Dragic has been really good pushing pace. Just trying to so if he would maybe consider Dragic as a starter, which is hilarious because I bashed the Dragic signing. I thought it was like pointless. I thought he was washed. I was like, why are they bringing in another guard? But with Lonzo out, like. And Dragic off the bench, he's been great. So if they keep starting slow, like I don't know if that's going to happen for this game, but if they keep starting slow, I do wonder if Dragic at some point maybe gets a starting nod. But it has seemed like Billy is starting to play him a bit more, playing him with closing lineups a bit more. I think he actually did close against the Pelicans. I can't remember all the exact lineup configurations.
26 minutes. He played well.
Yeah. So like Billy has definitely been going to Dragic a bit more. So that could be something that we see, just a bit more Dragic if he has it going still.
So here's a question for you. You talked about how these lineups are starting off a little slowly, and when looking at the Bulls roster at a surface level, you would assume while they have these scoring threats, they don't really have defensive players yet. They're 24th in the league at scoring right now, 6th defensively. How much of that is real on both ends, do you think? Do you buy the defense as to where they're at? Do you think it is sustainable? And not only that, has room for improvement with the addition of Lonzo. And do you buy that the offense is going to stay where it's at, around 24th, where they're struggling on a night-to-night basis?
It's really so funny how bad the offense. Oh, not funny. It's been depressing. The offense and the starting lineup offense. I think right now that the starting group has played like 60 or 70 minutes, and it's like a 101 offensive rating, and that's with DeMar, Zach, and Vooch. Like these three, whatever your three best players, these three like are offense first players, and their starting lineup stinks offensively. And Pat's been better. Io's has taken a leap forward. So it's like there's definitely plenty of room for improvement. I was looking at some of the underlying stats. I mean, the 3-point shooting is a huge problem. They're 29th. The team is 29th in 3-point attempts per game. 3-point attempts per game. They don't get offensive rebounds. They turn the ball over too much. That was a big problem. It's been a big problem in several games, just sloppy turnovers. So like, I don't know if the 3-point stuff is going to change much. I mean, missing Lonzo is such a huge factor in that, because that's 8 attempts a game at like 40% clip. And that's huge. And Kobe White, like, who hasn't been good, but like, that's one of your other volume 3-point shooters, has been out for a couple weeks now. Not sure when he's going to be back. Talking about the Wednesday against the Pelicans, I don't think Kobe's going to be ready and be back in that game. I know Kobe has had some games, at least one game against the Pelicans were hit. I think it was he and Zach both hit 8 threes. Like it was like the first time in NBA history two teammates have hit 8 3-pointers in a game. I do not think Kobe's going to be ready. It does not seem like he'll be back for Wednesday. So just the lack of 3-point shooting is killing them. I mentioned the turnovers. It's been sloppy. So like, and Zach has not been himself. He has not been as good. Like he's had a few games here and there, but like with the knee thing, he's not been as explosive going to the basket. He's still shooting pretty well. Like with his jumper, he's one of the best jump shooters in the NBA, but he's just not his quite explosive self. So him not being as good. DeMar has definitely taken a slight step back. He's had a few huge games. He had that Boston game where he almost put up 50. And like Vooch has been solid, but like he's just been he's been a little better than last year, but like not enough to really lift the starting lineup in the offense in general. So like Zach not being as good, DeMar not being as good, all second team all NBA, the lack of 3-point shooting, too many turnovers, offensive rebounding. I think that will improve at some point, and obviously you hope Lonzo comes back and helps fix that at some point. And then defensively, I mean, the bench has been elite defensively. That's been a huge part of it. Is like the deflections, Javante, Caruso, Jones, just they're athletic. They get out, they wreak havoc on these guys. So that's been pretty good. And even the starting lineup defense has been decent as well, even despite some of those like supposed negatives. So like, do I think they're a top 10 defense? Do I think they'll finish the year with a top 10 defense? I guess I'd be pretty surprised there, but I think they're at least good enough where they can be all right on that end, maybe a top half of the league. They really the offense has been the problem. And it's been in the problem in close games. It's been the problem with starting games. So they got to figure that out. And they have the issues with the shooting across the roster is going to be a big problem. They need their star player, their star guards to, I guess, get back to all-star level as well.
That's completely fair. Yeah, I mean, look, at the surface level, the shot profiles between the Pelicans and the Bulls are not too dissimilar. The Pelicans getting to the paint more. The Bulls are actually number 1 in the league in long mid-range twos attempted, which not ideal, but DeMar, Zach, capable shot makers. But when you build your offense around that, and you're 29th in the league in 3-point attempts, the Pelicans are 30th. You tend to have uneven nights when it comes to scoring. And sometimes you can really run up against a math problem. And the Pelicans sort of saw that when they played the Pacers, and the Pacers blew them out in terms of shooting from deep. They made 22 threes that game. And Pelicans have had multiple games this season where they haven't even attempted 22 threes. So it's a little bit interesting, but hey, that's kind of what you get when you have these players, the Pelicans having Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum, who also like to operate in the mid-range area. Obviously, paint king Zion is really not going to be a jump shooter. So I'm curious to see when this matchup happens coming this Wednesday, if it's going to be a similar result where the game is close for the most part and relies on just absolutely heroic shot making from the two like star shot makers on the respective teams, or if there's going to be an adjustment from the previous time where one team ends up taking control early. And the Pelicans will be coming off a back-to-back, so it really is a good opportunity for the Bulls to come in to Smoothie King Center, and if that's the game they choose to apply the pressure, then I think they have an opportunity to do something.
Pelicans they were 3 of 19 in the game, and they won right in last Wednesday from 3. Something crazy. I thought I saw some crazy stat about it. It was like the fewest amount of threes made in like a win, and it was something weird like
happened twice last year. That's what it was.
That was it. So it was basically because Ingram and Zion did like nothing for the first 3 quarters, and then those two just started going to work in the fourth quarter, and the Bulls had their customary. I think the Bulls are now 0-6. I think it is in games that have been in crunch time, whatever, within 5 points with 5 minutes or less. They have played 6 of those games, and they are 0-6 in them. And that's such a big change from last year when DeMar was a clutch god. He was the best clutch player in the NBA. And I think they had like the second or third like net rating or something like that in crunch time minutes. Exact opposite this year, and that's the difference between. You give them a couple of those wins instead of the losses. Let's say they're like 2-4 in those games, and they're 8-6, and things look a lot better. They have not been able to execute in these close games. We saw that in the Pelicans game. DeMar dribbles the ball went off his leg, off his foot, and that one of those last possessions. I know he thought he got fouled on when Zion challenged his floater in the lane as well. It was probably. I know the Bulls broadcast was not happy with that, and Bulls fans weren't happy with that. That was probably a toss-up call. But the Bull again, you can't put yourself in position to have to rely on that. Brandon Ingram went into DeMar mode. He went into God mode. DeMar and Bulls did not, and they weren't able to do it. And it's been a problem all season with these clutch games. They just have not found that magic like last year.
Yeah. So I think the one thing I'm looking at is the last that Willie Green is, and one of the criticisms I think we've had is he's been a little reactive coaching this year. The Pelicans have more talent they've had in a while, but you see him frequently kind of reacting to how opponents are playing. And, he put in Billy Hernangomez against Drummond, and Drummond had the best plus minus in the team at plus 11, and Billy was minus 14 in 12 minutes. And like, if you take that away, maybe the Pelicans don't even have, maybe this isn't a crunch time game, And so I am curious, especially given the back-to-back, what happens. And I'm, Shamit, I mean, what do you think Willie's going to do coming off a back-to-back? Do you think he goes back to Billy minutes against Drummond, or do you think he learns from what happened last week?
Was that the game Nance missed? Did Nance play that game?
It was. So that's fair.
So I think I would suspect them to try to match the Drummond minutes with the Nance minutes. And they have the contrasting styles of play where you try to space Drummond out a little bit. But the problem with those Nance units is they just give up so many rebounds. And not that, Drummond is a guy that like raises the team's rebounding floor statistically, but he is a monster rebounder, one of the best rebounders in history, you could say. So particularly on the offensive, particularly on the offensive glass. So that gives me a little bit of anxiety to see how those match up. But I will say Willie Green, the adjustment that he has made since that game, and that game really kind of spurred a lot of talk from the Pels media and the Pels fans. It's like, okay, yeah, they won that game, but the process is absolutely terrible. Like your star players just not really getting touches or being focuses of the offense until it's the fourth quarter, and you're relying on the heroics and one guy to carry you to the win. That's not sustainable. So the one adjustment they've gradually made since that game is I think Zion's touches are increasing, and Zion himself has gotten better every single game. I think the last 3 or 4 games, he shot 80% from the floor collectively. He's back to being Zion. His season's true shooting is like 61% again. He's at 56% from the floor. So there's no question this guy is better. And they've started to introduce things like, hey, maybe we move CJ off the ball a little bit, have him set screen for Zion, start putting Zion in situations to play make at the top of the key. And if they do that, I think there should be less of an offensive lull. And the other thing that they've done is they've changed the rotation since the Bulls game. And rotation allows for Jonas to play some of those early second quarter minutes. And I think those will match up with the Drummond minutes. Yeah. And not that they were doing in preparation for Drummond or anything. I just think it's a happy coincidence that it will. And I think the chances of them, the Bulls just grabbing all the rebounds go down significantly if Jonas is on the floor.
Yeah. The Zion stuff was really weird in that first game. I feel like they were getting him the ball like never. I know, I thought Patrick Williams did a pretty decent job on him to start, but and I think they might have had Caruso on him at times too, just kind of shutting it down. But I feel like there was very
little. He definitely had
effort.
Caruso on him, and I was watching it, and I was like, dude, just get Zion the ball. Caruso's a fantastic defender, but come on, let's just.
It's like the video of that kid, the kid that was guarding Zion that went viral, that he actually met up with Zion again. That's what it was with Caruso.
Right. Yeah. It was very strange. He had very few touches. Ingram, I feel like barely did anything at all either in that first couple of quarters. CJ had a really rough game. I would not expect him to play that poorly again. That was, I think, had to be one of his worst games of the year. I know he has looking at his numbers, they have not been as good as. But I mean, that game was especially bad. He's been on the Bulls in that game. Yeah. So I would be surprised if he was that bad again. But yeah, I mean, getting the ball, and it seems like I've seen it following you guys, following some other Pelicans writers. It does seem like it was getting Zion the ball and having him play make, be at the point Zion thing was not happening enough early in the season. But that is happening a bit more, or at least getting him in better spots gradually. But it seems like there have been in that first Bulls game, especially, there was just not enough Zion touches, definitely until the end, and he started going right at Patrick Williams and whoever else was guarding him, right at the beginning of the fourth, and then Ingram finished the job.
Yeah, I think that is kind of the blueprint for them is you use Zion's otherworldly talents and gravity to open up spots and make the game easier for Ingram, for CJ and all of that, instead of the other way around. And I hope that's a lesson that they've slowly started ingraining, but you just never know. Like, there's been so many games with the Pelicans this season. You're like, oh, that thing worked. I think they got it. They understood the lesson this time. And the next game, next thing you know, Devontae Graham is finishing out the fourth quarter, and they're playing 3 small guards, and you're like, guess not.
Yeah, I think one matchup. I'm curious, Jason, what you got your eye on specifically for this next game. But Jose Alvarado played 13 minutes in that game. I think there were some concerns about that, to put it lightly. And then if you look at the other side, the backup point guard for the Bulls, Dragic had played 26 minutes. He played great. Had 14 points, 6 assists. I feel like I'm going to be looking real closely at Jose's minutes first, and also who he's matched up against. I feel like he'll see a lot of time against Goran, and how he kind of reacts. I imagine he's not going to forget. Not that Goran dropped those points on him, because he hardly played.
Yeah,
I'm hoping to see Alvarado play a little bit more, and really, he's full intensity all the time he's out there. But anything you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense given how well Dragic has played with that bench unit, kind of running that bench unit, because he's kind of just been a guy who's been, we know he loves to push pace. He gets the Bulls into their sets. He loves throwing lobs. He's been throwing tons of great lobs this season to whether it's Drummond, Derek Jones Jr., Javonte Green. The Bulls have some guys who can really dunk, and Goran has been hitting that. So if you put Alvarado on him and kind of shut him down, that would definitely kind of choke off some of the Bulls bench stuff. You stop them in transition. The Bulls have been good in transition this season offensively, even without Lonzo, which was actually kind of a surprise because Lonzo was such a big part of the transition game last season. Dragic has played a huge role in that. So if you cut him off, that definitely kind of really hurt the Bulls bench, just hurt the Bulls offense in general. And then besides that, it's really, I mean, a lot of it just comes back. A lot of it does come back to Zach and DeMar just kind of going off. And then if Pat can keep doing his thing, and I guess the Io CJ McCollum matchup is kind of a fun thing to watch because Io did do a pretty good. CJ has been struggling. I thought Io did do a good job, but if CJ gets loose on Io, like that's certainly going to be a problem for the Bulls. Like to see Io take advantage of his matchup as well. And then just if we get down to another close game, if the Bulls can execute down the stretch, and if DeMar can be better, if Zach can be better, Zach has just been really, like I said, he's been fine. Like you look at his numbers, I think he's averaging like 21, 22 a game, but he just like has not been consistently that explosive guy. Like he said, like he had the one game against the Nets where he had like 20 in the fourth. Just it was raining threes, but the Nets weren't even guarding him at all. It was awful. He's had some questionable decision making. Has never really been his great strong suit. Like yesterday, he had a lot of bad turnovers, some questionable shot selection. So like, if Zach can give a big game, and whether sometimes when the Bulls go into like hero DeMar mode, things can go poorly for them. So if that can be spread out a bit better between DeMar and Zach, kind of getting them back together, having good games together, and then whether the other guys step up as well. That's obviously just kind of going all across the entire lineup. But the Bulls just have been kind of weird so far this year. They've been all right, but just with the injury stuff and some of the starters being so bad and the bench being so good, it's just been kind of funky watching them in a lot of these games because they fall behind so much, but then they usually don't quit and they make these comebacks and they just can't finish so many of these games.
So two of the players we really haven't touched on are the two big men, Jonas Valanciunas and Nikola Vucevic. In the previous matchup, Jonas seemed to be having quite the good time against Vucevic. He had 21 points, 13 rebounds. He played under 30 minutes. The Pelicans won the minutes that he played. So that was something I know Mason and I were hoping that they utilized more of this coming matchup. But just in general with Vucevic, we're not going to belabor the whole Orlando trade and the investment that was put into it. But what does it take for him to have a successful night? Like what do the Bulls need to do to make sure he gets going, and what do good games look like for him at this point, rather than, because in Orlando he was the hub and he could put up 30 and 20 and do all sorts of things, and that role is just not there now for the Bulls. And so what do they need of him, and what does a good night look for him?
I mean, you look at his numbers, and they still are pretty good. Pull him up here. I mean, I think it's like 16, 17 a game. Was he 16 and 12? He's still a great rebounder. 16, 12, and 3. Shooting 47% overall, 39% from three. So like his 3-point shooting coming up after like he was way down last season is good. Getting that back up into the mid to high 30s is great. That's nice to see. I know like the Bulls broadcast just loves banging the drum on like they need to establish Vucevic in the post. They need to play them in the post. To a degree, I think that is kind of true because if you get him down low, like and if you force guys to collapse and if you kicking out to open shooters, Vooch is a great passer. He's still one of the best passing centers in the NBA, and 3 assists. He's always kind of been around there. So like drawing double teams and stuff like that. Like I said, the Bulls broadcast harps on it. The post game show, they harp on it a lot. I don't want to just bang the ball all the way down to Vucevic all the time. He's like, that's going to be slow. That's not the most efficient, but like there are times where getting him involved in the post is good. And getting him involved at what they use him a lot at the elbows in the middle of the court because he can shoot from the free throw line. He can pass around to shooters and stuff like that. So like, I mean, like Vooch has been like honestly far from the problem most of the season. Like I said, his numbers are pretty good. He's not going to be that 25 and 12 guy anymore. But like what he's doing right now has been pretty good. He's shooting better. He still rebounds great. His defense has been fine. Again, like the starting lineup's defensive rating is really good, and I think he's generally like a decent defender. I know again, Jonas kind of crushed him the other night, but like in terms of like pick and roll, it's not like he's getting like roasted all the time. He's usually in the right spots. He finishes possessions with his rebounds. So like I can't really complain too much about Vooch this year. I know he's playing for a contract, and I don't know if he's going to be, depending on what the Bulls do this year, they might look to change some things up going forward. But like Vooch was a huge punching bag last season because he started off so poorly, and he ended up having like an okay season. So far, really, there have been a couple dud games, but like for the most part, he's all right. So like hitting a 3 or 2 per game, grabbing 12, 13 rebounds, 3 or 4 assists. If he can give you a 15 to 20, that's good, and play at least passable defense. I'll accept it. It'd be nice if he does not get outplayed by Jonas again, like so much like he did last game. But I mean, Jonas is a really good player in his own right, so sometimes it happens.
Yeah. I'm throwing out of the box question here. I think we can probably wrap up pretty soon. But what's your Anthony Davis trade look like?
Oh, good Lord! On cash considerations, me and Ricky actually. My co-host Ricky O'Donnell did briefly talk about this on our episode last week.
Okay.
Oh God, we talked about like, would you do Zach? Like, I mean, it wouldn't be straight up. It'd be Zach probably and a few other pieces for Davis. Like, would I do that? I don't know. I mean,
I think you should have been that side-eye out at the exact same time. Interesting.
I would not trade Zach for Davis.
Really?
No.
I think we all and then we talked about like, oh, maybe you go like a younger package with like Pat, Io, and like Vooch for like whatever, some salary filler. Or I guess there's always DeMar. I know DeMar has been awesome, but like the Lakers and the DeMar thing. I think ultimately like any of these iterations of the trade, I think we were ultimately like we'd probably do most of them, but like not feel good about any of them. The Zach thing, I think it's just because the Neath. I think there is some concern about if Zach's ever going to get back to like Zach, like he was a couple of years ago when he was putting up like 27 a game, even last year. Like it's tough. It's really tough. Because AD is also he's hurt every other game. We basically were just like, I wouldn't feel great about it. Like even as a Chicago guy that AD is, because he's always just kind of moping around. I know like yesterday he had 37 and 20 basically. And like when he actually like puts himself to it, like he can still have these great games and his numbers look great, but like, is he really raising you that much more at this point? And he misses time and he's always leaving games, falling all over himself on the court. I don't know. So it's like, I think ultimately where the Bulls are at, they're just like in a spot where they might be kind of stuck. Maybe we'll see. Like, I want to give the front office more time, but like, does Anthony Davis raise your ceiling a bit more than Zach does at this point? Probably, but like, again, wouldn't feel great about it.
Look, the reason I wouldn't trade Zach is not because I think Zach's a better player than Davis. It's just I just don't see a future that is fun or good where you're putting your eggs in the basket on Anthony Davis and DeMar DeRozan. And DeMar's been fantastic, but just relying on his heroics like year in, year out. And and Davis is a really good compliment, but again, you're running into those issues where you just don't have any 3-point creation. And if one of those two guys goes down, you're just like, what do I do with this team?
Yeah, and I was gonna say the idea of like if they were all healthy, like out like Zach, Lonzo, and like AD together, like sounds like it could be really cool. They all have horrible injury problems, so it's like it just seems like I said, any like kind of way you try to put a trade together like that, like it just seems like like I don't know about this.
It seems like because I think he really would be a really good fit if you maintained your backcourt, and that's the sort of exact type of not only scoring threat but like defensive player that you need, and you add Lonzo to that, you add Caruso, like just imagine the turbo lineup, but the center is Anthony Davis.
Except
So
he doesn't like playing center, so maybe it would be Andre
but you close
Drummond
games with
and
that.
AD at the 4.
Yeah.
Just
same draft class too.
Derrick Jones Jr. will play center for him.
There you go.
Reminds me of when they had. You could bring back Mirotic. His buddy played center for him when he was at the Pelicans.
There you go. That's right.
Bulls legend Nikola Mirotic.
That'd be funny, man. Like if it was Drummond and AD, because we talked about that very draft, because the pick before, but Drummond was the pick before Austin Rivers, and so we're like, okay, Drummond and AD, that'd be wild if we can get that together, and just it came one pick short. And I don't know if that was ever if that's something the Pelicans would have, or the Hornets at the time would have jumped on, but it'd be funny if they finally put that duo together in Chicago.
Well, the Lakers jumped on it, didn't they? Again, and they put that duo next to LeBron. They thought that was a good idea.
That's right.
You would basically be recreating the 2021 Lakers, because that'd be Caruso, AD, and Drummond. And that team lost to the Suns in the first round.
Just Zach and DeMar are better than LeBron, right? That's how it works.
Totally.
Man, look, Jason, this has been a good time. Before we leave, can you tell us where our fans can find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Bulls_J. For now, yeah. For now, we'll see how that goes. I'm not on
Twitter.
I said I'm not on like Mastodon or anything like that yet. Maybe I'll look into it at some point, but I'm holding on for dear life here on the old Twitter at Bulls_J. And then Cash Considerations, a Blue Wire podcast with my co-host Ricky O'Donnell. And then also managing editor over at Clutch Points. And I think that's basically it now. So that's everything.
Respect. Well, thank you folks for listening. If you don't know, we have a wonderful sponsor that you can see on our screen. They're called DraftKings. And if you want to bet on the NBA, DraftKings is offering you an awesome deal where you put $5 on any pregame money line for an NBA team to win a game. You get $150 in free bets. So download the app right now. That's DraftKings Sportsbook, and use the promo code BOOT as seen on your screen, BOOT. Place that $5 bet and get $150 in free bets. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Thanks for listening.